Hi, I'm Christy Kavanaugh, Assistant Principal at Morton West High School, and I'm here today to talk to you about the new attendance initiative at Morton West. With me I have Chris Simek, who's one of our guidance counselors.
Christy, I know that before you became our assistant principal, you were both a teacher and a dean. So coming from a background of a dean where a lot of the stress is on attendance and tardies, can you tell me a little bit about the history of tardies at West and things that have been done in the past?
Yeah, at the West Campus, the tardiness has always been handled by the dean's office. It was always four deans down at the tardy table addressing it oftentimes would appear to be hundreds of kids tardy every day, trying to make sure that students were not only getting to class, but for those that had excessive numbers of tardies, those issues were being addressed as well. One of the major problems that we found with that was that while we were doing a great job of addressing those tardy issues and consequences, students were really missing out on a lot of class time. So that was as problematic as students being tardy themselves. So as we tried to find better and more efficient ways to address the tardy problem at West, the dean's office, forward two years later, developed a system in order to process students in using just strictly an Excel sheet where they would scan students in, students would be given a pass to class, and it was great. Kids were getting to class within 10 minutes. The problem for that then became the overwhelming task for the dean's office to then kind of catch up with those kids at a later time since they weren't processing those essentially tardy referrals right then and there. That all kind of came to a head when we started using SkyWeb, which is our student management system. It allows us to run some reports to really get an accurate depiction of who's tardy and how many students are tardy on any given day. We were astounded to find that in November we had over 900 students with 5 or more tardies to first hour. We kind of came together as a team and tried to develop a way to kind of balance the idea of efficiency with the putting into place of some additional interventions to address those things early on. And then that was when we started implementing our new tardy initiative. So you as a guidance counselor, you were invited to be part of the tardy table. What awareness did you have about the tardy table before becoming involved in December?
Really what I thought, and I think some of my fellow colleagues would say the same, is I wasn't quite sure really what the tardy table, I knew students came in, I knew they got passes that would then send them to class, but I wasn't quite sure what the time limit was there any consequences being held, did it really impact them besides getting a pass and going to class? So I really wasn't sure on the progression, on what the consequences were, really what the effectiveness was of simply stopping, getting a pass, and going to class. So when we got involved here second semester, what's kind of cool is not only did we learn a little bit more about what's being done at the tardy table by the deans, so obviously when you're late to school, there's a consequence, which is understandable. When you don't meet a rule or an expectation, usually there's an outcome that happens. But what's nice on what we do now as counselors is there's a different kind of conversation that happens with the students. So I know that students see the deans, and then when they come to us, it's more of a problem solving. It's more of, let's really understand how these tardies are impacting you. So I know personally when a student comes to me, you start out by asking them, why are they? Why are you late? What is the reason behind it? And sometimes it is strictly on that student. I woke up late, my car didn't start, I didn't get gas. So for things that the student has control over, we're able to kind of bring it to their attention like, hey, these are things you have control over. I know you have a cell phone, I know it has an alarm, maybe we need to send it, maybe we need to set it for an extra 20 minutes. If you're walking to school, maybe that means we need to walk a little faster, start a little bit earlier. But in addition, sometimes the reasons the students are tardy are kind of out of their control. If they have a friend picking them up or a family member driving them to school and they're getting there late, and it isn't necessarily their fault for why they're late, we still have to kind of work through it with them, how they can have conversations with the people in their lives to make sure they understand how them being late is impacting the students. what I've seen is that letting the students know, what the outcomes are. If you are missing class on a consistent basis, you are going to miss out on some of the learning, which means your grades are going to suffer. When they start to put together that by not being here, I could potentially get a poor grade in a class, and this could impact my graduation and even my plans for after high school, there seems to be a little bit of a click, like, oh my, I'm not just being late, I'm not just stuck standing in this line, but this can really impact my plans that I have for myself for the future. What's also kind of nice is that the students maybe don't necessarily know what the progression of consequences are. So when they meet with us, we can say, well, the next time you're going to be sitting with a dean after school. The time after that, maybe you have to return with a parent. So there's more of a problem solving, there's a little bit more, there's less of a focus on consequence and more on what is the impact on your being tardy and how can we figure out how to get you here. I know these are great things that we're doing within the building. So I guess my next question would be, what are some things that we do to get like the parents involved, or what are some things from your side that we're doing to bring them into the situation?
Great. I think that one of the things that we've started doing really well this semester is increasing even parent knowledge of what tardiness is, when tardiness happens. I'm sure you experience the same thing in talking with kids and parents, that sometimes factors like traffic or how long it even takes a student once they get into the building to get to their locker and get to class, parents and students don't necessarily think of those things. So we have this whole school year, we used our school messenger system to make automated phone calls to parents. A phone call goes out approximately 9:30 in the morning, letting parents know that their child has been late to school. That worked to some extent, but what we've done relatively recently, starting second semester, is we're using Skyward. We're using our family access that allows parents to check not only their students' attendance, but their grades, their discipline, all sorts of those things. We're posting a letter in that family access at the end of each day for students that are tardy. There's a nice letter there that explains your child has met this threshold, this is the consequence, as well as it has a number there for parents to call if they have questions about that. So those are kind of the preliminary things that we do. Starting at number 6, which we consider is a pretty excessive number of tardies, parents are required to come in to meet with the dean. So the number of parent contacts through the dean's office has skyrocketed this semester. So that's great. It's a great opportunity for parents to not only hear what's going on with their kids, but also, really understand the connection between being on time and the other things like you discussed, their academic success. Mm-hmm. So parents are required to come in at 6, at 9, at 11 tardies, as well as 14, because we really feel if there's not being a change of behavior, we need to make sure that parents are aware of those things. So that's how we have parents involved.
No, that's awesome. And I think maybe one of the things with those return with parents, which I think, like you said, was new this year, is we can even incorporate those same conversations with some of the counselors. So just like how we've moved with the students from going to a strictly dean punitive system to problem solving with the counselors, that maybe some of those return with parents, the counselors could have some of those same conversations with parents to kind of get it from a different perspective again as well.
I think that you can really see a difference between the counselor involvement and the parent involvement, because November, December, January, we pretty much consistently were at, on average, about 230 tardies per day, sometimes many more than that, sometimes less. But since implementing this, February and March, we're maintaining at 150 or so tardies a day, and I think that these increase in conversations and these interventions really have helped to affect that. So we're hoping to continue to see that maintain
awesome.
Stable. Yeah.
It's nice to put something into place and then see the results, and actually be able to look at the numbers and see that we've gone from that number to that number and that it is having an impact. So it can only grow, from there as we implement more things. I know there's committee meetings that we have weekly or monthly after school, and so as part of the attendance committee, what are some of the things, or what are some of the things that are going to be focused on for attendance and tardies throughout this committee for the rest of the year?
Our attendance committee is great. It's made up of a number of people kind of throughout with different responsibilities at school. We have administrators, we have some guidance counselors, we have some members of security, our truant officer, as well as teachers and other support staff. So kind of people looking at tardiness and interventions at kind of a number of different levels and from a number of different places. The main goal of the committee is to get the data, get the information, and then analyze it and look at some of the things in order to make sure that the things that we're putting our time and effort for are things that are truly going to have an impact on student attendance to school. One of the things that the committee did early on was they did a survey with students that had a number of tardies to school, asking them questions. You know, why are you late? How do you get to school? You know, are there, if anything that Morton West can do that would, you know, help make you get here on time? So looking at those results, talking to kids, talking to parents. Our PBIS committee has done a great job of addressing attendance at a number of levels. Not only do we have the first hour initiatives, they just recently in February looked at 6th hour attendance. So making sure once we got kids here in the morning, which is what the Tardy to School initiative is really about, but making sure they're staying and they're maintaining their academics throughout the school day. So that's something really great they've done. And then we also looked at 3rd, 4th, and 5th hour during this past month, because what we found was that students were using the lunch hours as an opportunity to maybe not get to their classes as quickly as they should or not at all. So there's a number of classes that are being rewarded by a pizza party because their kids were there on time. So there's lots of different initiatives that the committee's working on. They're looking at marketing. They want to develop some posters that can be created by some of the graphic arts class and displayed, you know, throughout the building and maybe even in the community. There's a lot of really good ideas out there, and it's just a matter of, you know, being able to implement those things and, again, making efforts where we feel that it'll make the biggest impact.
Well, that's awesome.
Thanks for joining us today, and more about the Tardy Initiative at Morton West in the future. And stay tuned for more 201 Today.